Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to have all of you in this really, power-packed, if I may say, talk, which is coming up over the next 40 minutes or so, where we will go through a plethora of topics, but all around, set in a background of the transformation that we are seeing in the operations function over the years, where we started from, where we are getting to, and where we are headed towards. So it is just a great topic to be in with all the years of experience put together. Maybe we'll cross a century together. I'm not talking about our ages, by the way. So, given that premise, let me jump right into this discussion. And all of you, thank you for taking the time to have this chat. I'll kind of guide through this. I'll also play the role of as they say, a moderator of sorts. So let me try to put both hats, give my Intel experience as well as moderate this discussion as we move on. So my first piece is let's spend a little bit of time introducing ourselves, not really focusing on everything that we have been doing, but really looking at our strategy that we have from the operations perspective in our respective organizations. What have we learned? How has it evolved, and things like that. And I'll go around and maybe I'll just take this chance to be the first speaker and talk about what we've been doing. So several years back, when we really started looking at operations as a function in a much smaller form of Intel, which was maybe 15 years back, we thought that yes, this is going to be the fixed it organization, which is going to kind of put the right bandages, the plasters, and everything so that things work fine. And we were pretty good with that at that point in time. We realized after a point in time that there are two pieces that need to be definitely a part of it. One is predictive and proactive kind of planning. That's one thing that we built into the processes. And the second is close linkage with what's happening in the business. Because if we started doing things which was kind of very separated from the business, the solutions was something which was not very amenable to the business, because finally they're the ones who are going to adopt those solutions and kind of take them forward. So we kind of introduced that into the framework. And today, what has come out in terms of operations function in Intel India is that we consider ourselves as the bedrock, the fundamental piece of all strategic elements. The three strategic elements, key strategic elements being, the R&D piece, which is the engineering. Then there's the innovation piece, and there is the market growth. And if you can picturize it in under these three pillars lies the substrate of which is the operations and organization. So not only is it the fundamental, the foundation, but also kind of speaks to every one of these verticals back and forth, so that the strategy that is built, the solutions that we build, the specifics that we look into, whether it be growth, whether it be new areas, whether it be even basic things like efficiency and compliance, is somehow that intertwined into these three things that I spoke about. So that's how strategy is inbuilt, our operation strategy is inbuilt into the organization. So today, that's how it's been. It's always evolving. It's not like something like that. It is cast in stone today. As business evolves, as the climate evolves, as the environment evolves, our operation strategy also has to evolve. I will stop here, and maybe Jain, why don't you go next?
Great start, Manas. In terms of how the operational role has evolved, right? If that's your perspective to discuss, I think the fundamental genesis of how we evolved this in VMware India was a successful company, been in existence 10 plus years in India, double digit growth, and some of you have, if you're following VMware, that's all was happening. But I think the uniqueness of what we tried to do was to try to connect the pieces of a very robust top down strategy, which I think most of the companies here in the audience would have, but more predominantly also look at a collaboration framework for the first time, which is structured, formalized. And what we did was evolve the strategy process both bottoms up and laterally. And that was the unique part of our value proposition as we set out on saying what the next frontier or how to drive the next level of growth and maturity for a site which is now larger than the headquarters, and how do we get into the value game. So then came the next phase of saying how do we define and execute an operational framework to execute to this strategy. And the unique part was we got functional expertise, shared resources from across the organization in India to say, okay, beyond your day job, what would you like to contribute towards? And that was definitely a very unique thing we had never done before. And as that got set up and we got some confidence, we structured the focus and priorities into four major areas to get these teams to collaborate together. One was, of course, customer experience and innovation. The second one was around capability and engagement, and all the pieces around inclusive workforce, diversity, driving the managerial and leadership capability, driving tech talent capability. Some of the programs which some of us in this audience would always have going, there are so many learnings when you stitch it together across functions. And that was a big revolution for us. The third piece was around coexistence, partnerships. That was around brand and ecosystem. How do we connect with the ecosystem to amplify and extend some of the leverages we have had as individual organizations and the expertise we have? I think there's a lot to be done in this area. So we put tremendous focus in that. And the last piece, follow the rules of the land, and a kind of nightmare for every corporate CEO here in India and country leadership, was our focus on driving best-in-class governance and compliance. So if you look at these four tenets around our strategy, we evolved everything around then. How do we collaborate and execute and measure? And I think in each piece we have a remarkable story to deep dive and actually learn from it. So that's how we positioned our strategy and operations group in VMware India.
Thanks, Jain. And we'll deep dive into some of those as we continue through our discussion. So, Neha, let me just switch on to you and hear you out through this process.
Sure, great. I think there was some great insights from Jain. The Akamai India site operations is not a very old team. I think we just evolved in last couple of years. And like everybody else are talking about, we also have three-pronged approach. One is to help teams find ways to automate routine and repeatable work. And we at Akamai are swearing by the philosophy that if something can be automated, it should be automated. So every project or team either builds or leverages existing automation projects, be it small or large. It can be a simple Python script, Git workflows, complex interconnected algorithms, or maybe a simple HR process. So the goal is to position India, which is now the largest center, as the hub of automation in the global map. We have a library of all automation projects. We encourage folks to share, reuse, learn, and share their challenges and keep working on the automation. And all of this is definitely possible with our second goal, which is collaborate. And not only collaborate within India, but collaborate within teams across Akamai. And the recent example that I can think of is we actually last year launched an initiative, which is a best workplace initiative, where build a team of 30 plus member cross-functional teams, 8 people practices, multi-layer, multifunctional, multi-regional stakeholder involvement. And all that was done in a very collaborative way. And then the people practices that we focused were inspiring and speaking, listening and collaborating, thanking and celebrating, and top of all was communication. Inform, educate, and keep the engagement on. And the third approach, which is the gist of everything, is to focus on helping to empower Akamai to deliver a superior customer experience. And that's done through various innovation programs like intrapreneurship or influencers. We also have an innovation program, which is Wizards, and incubation program, which allows people to feel empowered and focus on delivering the best-in-class customer service.
Very nice. Collaboration, deeply embedded into the business. So many beautiful things coming out of this discussion. Vikram?
So again, A pleasure being part of this panel. I think we've set the context in terms of what we're talking. I represent Dell. Currently, I think it's a great place, right, from a strategy and operations perspective, because it gives me and my team out here a unique position to be in such a wonderful place. Because reason being, so we are called the center of excellence for a reason, right? Because we have about 40 business units sitting together, right? Largely representing, it could be R&D, or it could be a core IT, or it could be a shared services, right? You name it, you have a business organization. At the core, I think I'm in a sweet spot because I cut across all the 40 plus business units to kind of work with them. It gives me a great sense of, I would say, satisfaction to be a part of that, primarily because we are the enablers, right? I somehow feel, I think I enable all of the organization to kind of meet their objectives quarter on quarter, or it could be a solution that you develop at the COE. I'm the backbone, right? My team. So strategy and ops sit right in center of the entire organization. Like Jain said, most of the time we have the top-down approach in terms of delivering the organization's strategy. It takes a lot of preparation. We are part of the entire journey together, right? So whether it is the COE, typically in our language we call it GIC. Globally, we have multiple GICs. We have ops sitting at the GIC, ops at the global level. We play a key role in kind of ensuring that the entire strategy is trickled down to different levels of the organization. Each of the employees understand what our top 5 or 6 objectives are for the next year, right? So we put in a lot of effort to make our entire workforce understand what is our core deliverable for the current year and the coming years, right? So that's where I feel operations team play a huge role, right? It could be anything, right? I can give you some of the examples because core to our future, what we learned from last 2 years, this was core to what we deliver and what we want to achieve as well. One, I think we should build a leadership pipeline and upskill or multi-skill your workforce, right? Our workforce are the ones who are at core of our business. If our workforce are future ready, I think our business is going to kind of soar. We can do a lot of things around the workforce. So I'm just giving you just few examples. I know most of us do a humpty number of things, but we can't talk pretty much everything. But I'm going to talk about 2 important things, that is leadership and upskilling our force, right? One of the programs that we actually focus is build the pipeline of future ready leaders as part of our organization growth. The program that I'm trying to kind of explain here is an annual run program. Various modules come into it. We have affiliation with IIM. Part of the program, they come and deliver one of the modules. Change management. You talk about self-realization. There are a lot of workshops. People go through intense rigor to kind of understand what they are built for, right? That's on one side. On the other side, you have your regular quarterly call to action that you need to meet. Be it your, why I'm saying this rigor in terms of quarterly meet is primarily every quarter or every 6 months, you have new technology coming, right? The workforce have to be agile. They need to kind of pull up their socks. They need to kind of be ready for the future. Be it the so-called artificial intelligence that everybody's talking about today, data analytics, machine learning. All right. For us, the focus is 5G telecom, typically around the telco, edge computing, right? All these things. So I run programs. My team runs the programs. So our focus is basically to have one side, the leadership pipeline, be ready, and the rest of the folks be at least conversant or be ready, be prepared for the future skills, wherein they need to kind of shift jobs or move up the ladder. So we ensure that this kind of takes care, right? On the other hand, we look at professional development as well. Like your process methodologies, be it Six Sigma, or it could be a PMP or Agile certification, not to forget the skills as well, right? So cutting short, so I think overall, in a nutshell, I think this is what I think at core strategy and operations at Dell means, Manas.
Wonderful. And last but not the least, TV.
Yeah, sure, Manas. So at Walmart, we have been here for about 10 years, slightly about 10 years. And as we have seen in the last 18 months, I think the challenges of COVID-led new work arrangement has been phenomenal. So we have also been basically adapting to keeping up with the times. And I would say that our function at a very high level is obviously being a strategic partner to the businesses. But the way I like to put it is that we are really all about the strategic orchestration. I think that's how I would really define my role or my team's role here. And at a very high level, there are 5 areas that we do that, and let's just quickly go through them. So the first one is really all about the low-hanging fruit, which is really, well, you have multiple business units. How do you cross-pollinate the best practices? How do you really learn from each other, the way of working, and other things, right? So that's really the advantage of all the GICs and IDCs of the world, right? Because nowhere else in any company you ever have an opportunity of all the business units operating under one roof. So I think that's our sweet spot, and we absolutely owe it back to the parent company to really become that mechanism there. So that's the first thing. The second thing is at a more technical and a product level to be able to really leverage or enable the sort of a reuse of assets, for example. So it could be design patterns, it could be architectural modules, it could be any kind of a reuse that we have to. Because any large company like ours, for example, it's very easy for people to really work on multiple areas and not be aware of it, because everybody is so busy in their own things. You have to have mechanisms where people are able to sync up their work, and you have a mechanism for them to be able to have an internal repository of sorts, whether it is best practices or design patterns and so on. So that's really the second part of how do we enable what we call as inner sourcing as opposed to an open sourcing. It's an inner sourcing, which is how do we create those kind of mechanisms internally. The third one is all about innovation. And I think over a period of time in the last 20-25 years, we have seen the GICs have continued their maturity march. And I think we have come to the point where more is expected out of GICs than simply sort of, if I can put it very crudely, cutting the code, right? We are all talking about how can we really bring a lot of ideas bottom up. Some of the folks talked about on the call. So that's really how do we really do that innovation, and how do we bring some of the best ideas there. I think it's also an opportunity because India is not only a net provider of technical manpower, but also a great marketplace now. And we can learn so many things, and we can really do, India is a test bed as well. So I think it's an opportunity for everyone. The fourth point is the whole upskilling, and I think some of our panelists also talk about it. So we have a responsibility for the technical upskilling of that. And yeah, I mean, the technology changes at such a frantic pace that unless we really are putting a little bit of our time, effort, and money on the proactive bucket, we will be left behind the race. So how do we really help the techies kind of keep looking at the bleeding edge of the technology? And last but not the least, to me, it is all about the culture of technical excellence. So how do we really make sure that we are not just looking at the mechanics of that, but really looking at the spirit of what does it really take to build a world-class technology center from India? How do we really enable our associates so that they are not only seeing themselves? Because the biggest challenge for all of us is that we are like 12 time zones away from the markets, given the fact that majority of the work that we do is for the US and international markets. The biggest challenge is that we are cut off from the customer. So how do we really make sure that we still continue to have an alignment to the business, but bring our own unique technical culture? So these are, Manas, to me, these are the 5 things. And I put them together into a strategic orchestration bucket there.
What a fabulous round this was. I think some things coming out, and it's startlingly similar when we talk about both the journey as well as the positioning of operations within the organization. Collaboration, strategy building, strategy execution, intertwining with the business, and most importantly, leveraging extended teams to work, so that you don't have such a large operations organization which is going to make it happen. It is the entire organization which is going to make it happen. Great start. So I'll take a little segue out here, right? And maybe, as we said, strategic importance is increasing. I'll go around again on briefly touch upon one strategic initiative that you would have picked up, which potentially normally wouldn't be classified as what's called traditional operations. I'm just making this up, but feel free to pick any one of them as we move on. And I'll take the opportunity of speaking first again, but I'll be brief. There was a point in time we looked at a couple of years back, that when we look at sustainability as a program, it was not something which was adopted as a program of sorts. There were pieces which are happening. It was a lot of artifacts, proof points of sustainability practices and sustainability thinking, which was happening within the company, but there was no program as such. So here's where operations came in for us, and I said, okay, why don't I pick up this gauntlet and see how can I piece it together? First and foremost, tell one composite, cohesive story of what are we doing from the sustainability perspective, whether it be energy, whether it be the people piece, whether it be the research and development, whether it be our supply chain and the multiple areas and things like that. So we created a strategy. We created all these verticals. There were functions which we're doing. We started measuring it and aligning ourselves with the corporate goals and things like that. And then we realized that one of the brilliant pieces that we could actually pick up and work closely with all of you and everyone in the ecosystem is the ecosystem piece in itself, right? Because if you work as an island, that's the very little that you can do. So I reached out, and Jain is very much aware of this. So I reached out to several companies, and we had cohorts on various specific aspects, made it a thriving kind of a program. Today, 2 years later, I can say that had it not been for operations, maybe the story wouldn't have been knit together. I wouldn't take credit for the overall, all the efforts that are happening, but the way we could position this for the company in India and the corporation as a whole was that unique identifier that corporations could bring in. So again, I'll go around and maybe I'll choose a slightly different order. Each of you, if you can just be briefly share one or two of these strategic examples that you have. TV, I'll take you next.
Sure. So the one thing that I'm incredibly proud of is how we have put in the efforts to really look at the learning component, especially the technical learning component, which typically is seen as a very operational function in terms of, hey, get a trainer and do the job. But we have really taken a very different approach to that. So one of the things that, for example, we did recently was we created a program to groom our architects internally. I mean, that's been one of the biggest challenges in the tech industry. After all, there is a very limited gene pool of how many people you can get with 20 years of experience who can build an internet scale architecture. So what is the next best thing that you can do? You groom your own future, right? So we've been doing a wonderful program where we have been grooming our rookie architects with the seasoned architects and pairing them up. And we have brought this kind of a program, and we have taken the next steps to even kind of take it to the global level, where we are building those curriculum-based programs, which can then be availed by anybody inside the organization, and they can kind of go through a curriculum-based training. Obviously, the basic version of that is a very intense one-on-one, because there is a lot of tacit knowledge in being an architect, which cannot be codified into a curriculum. So we really want to make sure that we keep the focus. We know the scalability is getting hurt in that process, but I think there is no other way to really impart the tacit knowledge, and that is really the whole thing there. So those are some of the things, and I'm happy to share more as we go along.
Very nice. Neha?
Sure, I think that was great to hear about how we have to upskill our leaders in the organization. I can talk about one of the program that we've recently launched, and while I'm thinking about that program, it reminds me of what Howard Schultz, Chairman and Chief Executive of Starbucks for over 20 years, said, that innovation must be disruptive. You got to fracture and break the rules and disrupt. And here at Akamai, we are inviting our employees to innovate and disrupt. So how often does an idea hit you in the middle of a conversation or an activity? Do you have a burning customer problem that you would like to solve? And how often do you turn that idea into reality? So this is a program for employees in the region to develop their ideas into executable solutions. Akanova, that's what we call the APJ Incubator program, is to provide a platform for employees to submit their concepts and create a product prototype that will solve customer problems. They can share the concept, and we help them to turn it into reality by pairing them with mentors, providing them with tools, infrastructure, and more to execute them. We ensure that the innovation gets out to the right audience in Akamai and the world if it needs to. The best part of the program is that leaders from different business units, expertise, and different geographies have come together to create an incubation playground for employees. And we've recently even launched an award program for creating a prototype where anybody who creates a prototype before December 31st gets acknowledged by our CEO himself. So that's the program I'm really proud of and looking forward to the success of this.
Brilliant, and adding great business value in the process, right? Yeah, super. Jain?
Yeah, this has been an interesting conversation, and actually we are at a right junction of what typically has been defined as a blue ocean strategy, right? It's been talked about in the parallels of strategy and top line growth, but extending that logic, there's a lot which can be talked about and done at an operational level, at a site level in India, and two things which strike to me as proud moments would be the entire orchestration of getting diverse groups, as I said earlier, right, to rally towards a purpose which is different than your vertical goals and alignment. And all our organizations are typically structured vertical chain of command, line of sight, objectives, performance management, reward system. How do you disrupt that and still be successful? I think that's what I would call as a blue ocean strategy in areas we have attempted in the last 2 years. Two specific examples, right? And typically we have always follow the sun and follow the orders as GICs remotely from the headquarters. But two areas where we led the way, which are now case studies within the corporation globally, is around our effort around leadership development. I think we touched upon it a bit, but getting 7 or 8 diverse groups in learning and development space, looking at ecosystem partnerships to say who's the best in class, combining this effort to orchestrate a program in India which can then scale globally. It itself proves not a sign, not just mighty, but an effort leading to say it is possible that you can use India. And I think TV touched upon it. If you are a microcosm for the larger organization, and if you claim you are the largest in size, we have to up our game. And I think all of us with the years under our belt will come with that passion. But doing versus saying, there's a huge thing to cross over. And I think we have attempted that, decently successful. So that is one example. The other example, which probably is more applicable to India as a region, and I think all of us have grappled over time, is the compliance framework. So we attempted to put a most integrated model for risk management. We also learned, stumbled, and that's part of the journey. But it was so comprehensive that we tied our assessment process, which some of the companies like us go through n number of it. The beauty was we integrated even the assessment into one single assessment. We orchestrated a company-wide risk management framework and tied this together. So now, comesoever any new external finding, any new compliance changes by the Indian rule of the land, It dynamically gets integrated, assessed, measured, and evaluated. Probably this didn't exist even 18 months back for us, company wide. And guess what? Just last month, there was a company announcement that globally now they are rolling this out. And it feels good when you have already tried it out. You have lessons learned, which you can feed back to the larger mothership. I think my message to all of us is, let's not just keep waiting for things to change. There are opportunities, if done well. We could take the lead, take this as an example and scale, because even if you fail, right, you are still remote. So take the advantage of remoteness, but take the advantage of your size and all functions represented in one entity in India. These are the two takeaways, I would say.
Thanks, Jain. And again, Vikram.
Hey, yeah, again, I think a lot of insights, views from all of us, right? I would like to start by saying what my CEO says, right? Winning together, results, and integrity all together, right? These are the core values, right? Why I'm saying this is primarily at the COE. Typically, we are empowered. We are allowed to do things creatively. What you think is right, please do it, right? So having said that, we've done a lot of programs, initiatives, looking at entire center plus the overall corporate, right? Two examples that I can call out that we did uniquely at the center was, one is a gender dialogue training or a workshop, right? Typically, our male and a female kind of balances out in the work environment, whether it is at a low level or middle management or a senior level, right? There is a goal for us to have a lot of female leaders at the leadership level. So keeping that in mind, I think we kind of designed a program where we have both the genders come together, participate in a 6-hour workshop, right? Very focused to ensure that we have no biases in terms of having a female leader out there across with the male leader, right? So that was very uncomfortable initially, but I think great workshop. We did that for the leadership. We are currently doing it. We are currently doing it the management for a lot of leaders at various level. And interestingly, what I did was we wanted to showcase this across to the other COEs. So we have presence in Ireland, China, and Egypt as well. So we did kind of show this. So it's a work in progress for them. But a great workshop that leaders felt that current age, I think this is what we should be doing, right? So that's one example. Second is we have a lot of technical folks at a center. Typically, you have software engineers, you have professional services, managed services, who focus only on delivering a specific project or churning out codes or doing a lot of stuff, right? We all know that. What they probably needed was storytelling, right? So we felt, I think, storytelling for the core techies was very important. So we felt we need to do something in that space. So we again worked with a vendor. We built a core around say curriculum around storytelling for these techies, right? Today they are at the backstage. Given a chance, if they are put across a customer, they should be able to talk technical language in the right way, right? So these two examples, I think, again, around the learning part is what I feel we are doing a lot of stuff there. We are enabling people, right? I think these two examples, Manas, is something that at the COE we've kind of done really well.
Oh, then the reason I'm smiling is we started with commonalities, and then the variety in the second question round. It's amazing, right? How while operations has a lot of commonalities, there are specifics that we each of us has picked up and built, which stands out for our organizations in some ways, and also in some ways kind of is spearing or spearheading that particular activity within the organization. So phenomenal. I will now jump into kind of a rapid fire round. As we are transforming this operations manifesto as our the pitch is today, there's something called the mindset, right? And people ask what are skills in operations and things like that. So let's focus on the operations mindset, right? And just two or three words to say, okay, what could be the transformative operations mindset that you would think that would apply to the as the operations manifesto is evolving. And to me, through some of the discussions and through my experience comes blue sky thinking, right? People may not attribute that to operations, but yes. Then second is structure, and the third is collaboration. Those are three quick things that come to my mind. But I'm just thinking on the fly. Let's go. Anybody can take it.
I'll go first. So,
Sure.
yeah, I think collaboration is key, right? And collaboration, engage. One thing that we also should do is influence, right? In our capacity, I think we have the power. We have, with collaboration also comes influencing. I think that's critical for us to make the shift from where we are today to tomorrow, right? I think we should be in a position to influence decision making. I think that's key.
Keep it going.
Okay, probably this may sound a bit counterintuitive or controversial, but I'll just say it out because my research and observation is fundamentally contesting the way organizations today are structured. And when I say that, when the technology, business model, and business processes lines get blurred, when domains of people with 50, 60 years of legacy being contested by startups and new players, even traditional domain players venturing into adjacent areas, the lines are so blurred that the way organizations of today are designed, structured, and evaluated, my fundamental thesis and point of view here is we need to have a three-way street, not just for the strategy, which is what I said earlier, top down, bottoms up, and lateral, but also put business processes, incentive programs, rewards, and recognition, which cut across these lines. And I think there's a lot to be done in that space.
Yeah.
So I think from a mindset, it is not just for the strategy and business operations team here, which is the focus of this panel, but for leaders in this audience, I think one thing we need to start pushing the envelope. It's going to be tough. Is to evolve a model which allows for collaboration in a structured way and incentivize it versus good to have. I think we have crossed that stage to good to have scenario.
Yeah. And I totally agree with what Jain is saying and taking the conversation forward. I also believe that mindset shifts can only be successful if the culture is supportive. I think just the thinking alone will not drive success, and sometimes even the best of leader intentions can fall short if you do not have a senior leadership modeling the behavior that are in line with this thinking. Just for an example, if an organization that's promoting a growth mindset but then punishes failure or risk taking, it'll fail to instill this mindset in its people. Just as an organization that rewards group and individual accomplishment will probably have a hard time promoting enterprise thinking. So when that's what it says, that's not good enough to just get things done. We must also get the things done in the right way.
Yeah, if I have to add, Manas, to your question, the only thing I will add is, I increasingly see our roles are really gravitating towards the imagination part, to really see the art of the possible. Because I think everything that was possible in the yesteryears has been done. And now we are really looking at what next now. So I think to me, it is really all about being creative, being imaginative, and really working on the art of the possible.
Well said.
Nicely said, yes. And segue into almost the end of our this brilliant conversation. We are kind of reaching the as they say the crescendo of sorts, right? The future outlook, right, of the ops function. And I'll just start with a couple of lines, right? all of us are getting deeply embedded into the business. So after a point in time, operations separate from the business will not make any sense. Till now, we are almost considering ourselves as an organization or an org unit, but closely, embedding ourselves into the business. That is one which is clearly emerging. The second is, as an outcome of any critical decision that's happening through the fact that we are getting into such multifarious different things, we are carving a seat for ourselves on the table. It is not anymore that we decide and then thou shall execute, right? And then finally, the most important piece is, how are we going to knit all these pieces together? And we kept hearing the word collaboration. It is not just about people collaboration, it's strategic elements collaboration. It's about business possibilities collaboration, and kind of getting this whole pieces together into the big picture. So the importance of operations seems to be kind of improving and increasing. Thoughts? Again, I will not name people, so please go ahead and add on.
So Manas, I want to give an example, right? I think solar system, sun at the core and planets around it, right? I think strategy and operations typically should be like a solar system where we be the trusted partner, advisor, and also be part of the entire planning exercise, right? We can't kind of come and kind of join the priorities or goals that you have to achieve somewhere in the middle. So it should be from the beginning, right? So it should be like a solar system. So that's my view.
Lovely analogy. And I have to rush it a little bit. So just quick ones from you, Neha, then TV, then Jain.
Yes, I think for operation, it's time to rethink when we talk about what operations is. Uh, I think it has always been what gives an organization the power to act, to create value for its customers, to capture value for its shareholders, and to share value with its ecosystem. And I believe in this era of ubiquitous digital technologies, operations empowers an increasing variety of organizations, ever more modular, connected, and distributed, and even more centered on software and data. So I feel there is a great future as we move forward for operations.
Yeah, if I have to add, as I said, I would look at art of the possible as kind of my true north, and really work around that. But the way we do that is also to make sure that we are creating channels for a bottom up participation and ownership of the decision making and management, because I think in today's world it's a flat democratic world, and we have to make sure how do we really flow the ideas upwards rather than downwards. So that I think is we are the channel of communication to really make that happen. So I really look at that as an opportunity for us to really build a very shared future by everyone's participation there.
All right. I would say, I think, again, separating strategy function from business operations, it's high time to look at them integrated. Ability to where this function is in the org hierarchy plays a big part, because 80% is managing by influence and the rest 20% is walk the talk. So you need a balance of strategic mindset and, as TV said, imagination to solve current day problems, and the solutions from the past are not going to work. We all know that. So how can this function be at a level where it can balance this? And execution has to match strategy, otherwise we know the data, where it lands. It will never work. So I would say three things, right? Positioning of this group, charter of this group, and how that group can function internally and externally to build partnerships and leverage the best. These are the three takeaways in my mind.
Brilliant. And that kind of sums up our discussion today, right? From foundational to semi-strategic to vision, which has been painted out. This has been an incredible 40 odd minutes of very, very rich conversation. And I need to name all of you and thank you, Neha, Vikram, Jain, and TV, for taking the time, for spending this. I'm sure it's going to be very, very fruitful to our audience. Thank you again. All of you have a great rest of the day, and let's keep enjoying this conclave as we move on. Thank you
Thank
and
you.
bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Manas. Thanks, everybody.